but for putting up with a slightly later start. We did have some technical issues. That wasn't BYP, that was us. Don't put it on them. So thank you for your patience. So yeah, let's begin with some quick introductions. My name is Matt Ducanoy, and I'm the European Talent Acquisition Manager for Colt. I've been here for a little over a year. Dolores, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, and I'm Dolores Currie. I don't know if you can hear me this better. Dolores Currie, and I'm Director of Business Management and Transformation for Service Delivery, and also I'm the UK Country Manager.
So just a bit about Colt to give everyone a little bit of background. Colt Technology Services is an award-winning global digital infrastructure company which creates extraordinary connections to help businesses succeed. Our vision is to be the digital infrastructure company that the world's leading businesses choose to connect with. And Colt is driven by its purpose, to put the power of the digital universe in the hands of its customers, wherever, whenever, and however they choose. We celebrated our 30th birthday last year, and during that time, Colt has set itself apart through its deep commitment to its customers. We've grown our heritage in the City of London to now more than 60 offices around the world. We connect 222 cities, 51 metropolitan area networks, and 31,000 buildings. The growth in digital infrastructure is being driven by cloud migration, the hybrid workplace, the automation of just about everything, and the need to enable flexibility of service. We have 7 functions at Colt: HR, legal, finance, sales, marketing and customer success, operations and engineering, technology and security, and strategy and transformation. We empower people. We don't tell them what to do. Instead, we employ people we trust, and we look to them for the answers. Because at Colt, we want everyone to be able to make their mark. A diverse workforce drives innovation. It drives profitability. It enables better performance. It also creates a healthier work environment because it boosts engagement. And we know that employers that have a higher level of employee engagement can do remarkable things. Diversity brings that engagement forwards, and through that, we can create an environment that enables our Colties to be happy and deliver a better customer experience. Our UK office is in Shoreditch. For those who don't know, that is trendy East London. Think rooftop bars, graffiti that people actually pay for, and cocktails served with dry ice. This is an exciting year. We have a proposed acquisition looming, which will grow our European business, bringing with it some fantastic new colleagues, new customers, and new infrastructure. It's a very exciting time. So I wanted to just give a very quick intro. That is quite enough from me. You're here for Dolores. If there are any questions that anyone would like to ask as we go through, please pop these into the chat and we'll get to them towards the end. Okay, so thank you for listening to me. Dolores, over to you.
Thank you. Oh, I can't share my screen, so okay. I will start talking then. So basically, who am I? I briefly gave you a summary of my job role, but basically I'm more than my job. I'm not just Dolores Currie, Director of Business Management, etc. The way I describe myself is, okay, sorry, I've just got permission to share, so I was going to share my screen. Right, can you see my screen?
Can.
Lovely. Perfect. So what I'm about is that, as I said, I've got many hats. I do lots of different things. My first way of describing myself is I'm a carer, a guardian, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, friend, mentor, coach. Those things are really who I'm about. This is what I do, as well as my day job is obviously working in business management transformation, country manager, and obviously members of various committees and charities disparities, and I'll talk a bit to that in the couple of minutes forward. 30 years in the business. I've been 30 years plus in telecoms technology. I've seen lots of changes. There's a lot going in there in terms of what's happened and my own journey. I'm not going to give you a whole way of describing what I've done because that just takes too long. So I'm just going to pick out some pivotal moments that have come through in terms of what I've met, where I am, and some of the key things that made my decision. So if I go back, one of the first key moments I want to call out is effectively one of the first roles that I got in the technology and the telecoms industry. And that was actually joining the team within a major company in the UK. I was part of BT. And I joined in doing what was called bid management function. I was in the bid management function, and I was there to support the bid managers in actually getting out key tenders in response to customer requests. Now, that was a major job, and why I call that a major role? Because getting into BT at that time was pretty difficult. There's a quite extensive interview process that you went through, but it was also the journey of my time in technology. And one of the key things is, besides getting that role, is having the right management structure that I had and the team that it was, Dolores, you can do more than the job we brought you in to do. And that made a big difference. It was that transition from being the administration manager, looking after the documents, the tenders that go out, to actually becoming a bid manager. Now, in those days, being a bid manager, you had to be an engineer. So I didn't have an engineering background. And so that was one of my own personal things. This is not going to work for me. I'm not an engineer. I was told you need to have X, Y, Z and a master's degree and whatever to do this. My management line turned out and said, that is not the case. I learned on the job. I had training, system engineering training, etc. There's a whole training program that I went in, but it's also about understanding what our customers' requirements and also understanding what we're selling, what are our products and services. And those are the things I learned on the job. Over that period of time, I learned how to understand the network, how to describe it, how to sell it, and then obviously how to cost it. What does that look like? Where we're going to be? So to me, that was a really key moment for me, because from then started my journey in that area within the bid management function. It moved me on to up the ladder into senior bid manager, into head of bid management, etc. But what it did show is that I didn't have to have, as everyone says, that prerequisite training that you need to do. You can learn on the job, and this type of role I could learn and move. From that point on, it was very much, to me, and I would say to anybody who's in the bid management procurement function, for me, it was one of the best roles that you could get into. It gave me access to a number of people across the business, access to how we do business in the various function areas, and it's what's carried me through from that role onwards. Now, the next thing that I wanted to bring out as another key moment within that pathway that I was on in bid management was then, I've done it for quite a few years. It was, okay, I've done this, I understand, I've got head of bid management. My next pivotal moment was then making a leap of faith, moving from the bid management function where I headed up the bid management team for retail, for the retail industry, vertical industry, to moving into what was then our wholesale division, what was network build, and setting that up with the team. The general manager there was, this is what we're going to do. We're going to set up a whole new way of selling these services. And I was right at the beginning. So it was a great opportunity to start and develop a team from scratch, recruit them all and get them in to be a successful team. That was, again, for me, another key moment in my career in terms of my pathway and what happened. Things, as you can see, bumpy road. Things then started to change. We changed direction. Things were different in the business. We closed the unit. We did other things. We merged with other areas. And it was a chance to make a decision, where do I go next? What then should I do? I felt that I'd done enough in the bid role. Let me do something different. And I went an actual different pathway and decided I was going to do contract management, because you do, as well as looking at business operations in a small functional area. So it was a very different role for me. It was a really good role because it gave me exposure to other parts of the business. This is where I got involved in a lot of the risk management, business continuity, ISO certification, all of that area came to play. And that's where I got all of that experience from taking that leap of faith and doing something different. Moving on then, this is where again, you sort of have this landscape. You could see my direction was still in the business, in telecoms. And I thought, time for a change. I put myself forward. There was a time where you could put yourself forward for different roles. The question was, what did I want to do next? What was my next job? The usual one, you know, somebody asks you, what do you want to do in 5 years' time, etc. And when I was asked, I said to my manager then, 5 years' time, I want your job, hopefully before, but I want your job. What do I need to get there to do a general manager role? There was in that time, you were allowed to self-select, put yourself forward for these major training development programs. And I was very lucky. I got onto the program and a major change. And that helped me then get my general manager role, where I managed over 100 plus people, various teams, where I had the bid management team came back to me, project management. I had obviously operational management, and I actually took on a operational division. So this is where service delivery is a part of an operational delivery unit within the company. And this was a good experience because I recognized I didn't have that in my toolkit. I didn't have that operational delivery experience. So that was part of my selection and my self-selection process of what I wanted to do. Then it moved on. So I won't go into the other areas, but moving the landscape, it was, okay, I've done this for a long time now. What next? What do I want to do? What would that look like? And what can I do myself? Because obviously, as you go up, you start to doubt, am I good enough? What can I do? What should that look like? And it was really important for me to recognize, okay, I need to change. I need to go somewhere else. I've been in this company long enough. Let me take a leap of faith. Let me give myself some time to do something differently. So I took some time out, literally, what I call my gap year. And I effectively went into doing other things externally. I was doing lots of charity work then, and I got involved more in that side. And I was also a member on the London Probation Board. So I had time to put in and invest into that and really understanding what that NED role is, what I needed to do, chaired a number of committees, etc. So it was very much doing all of that, looking at what I needed to do, but also for me, it was also about, as I say on the slide, recognizing and recognition and celebrating the wins. There was numerous of those throughout my career, and sometimes I'm probably my own worst enemy. I don't like when people say you've done a great job. It's almost like, okay, you brush that off. It's recognizing and celebrating those really great moments where I get peer recognition. My peers have voted for me for one sort of award. I've had other awards where I am currently now, but all of that sort of changed. So for me, I just wanted to realize and just to re-highlight that the fact that this journey in career from the beginning was quite challenging. Coming into Colt, fast forward, I came into Colt at one role. I decided I'm not going to have a team again. Let me see what it's like just coming back to be a single contributor again. What does that, as a specialist within the role, what will that look like? I did that for a few years. We changed roles, changed organizations. As always, the bumpy road, it winds and it moves and it changes. And that happened even within my first couple of years in Colt. I think I had 4 managers in a really short period of time. And I'm thinking, oh, have I made the right choice? But obviously I did, and I'm still here. But what it opened up was, because I was willing to do what it needed to do the job. I already had the expertise, that was a given, but I was open for what else is out there. What other things could I add to my tool bag that I could go out and deliver and support the company with? And that's where it came through in terms of, okay, I can do this role. I got involved in other activities, for example, getting involved in like the country role. I started as a UK ambassador. They were asking for ambassadors. I put my name forward, got involved with activities, working with some of our customers, and that sort of helped me that direction. So I really wanted to bring that out for a bit in terms of the role itself. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that later on in this, my deck. One of the things I wanted to bring out from a personal perspective was during this whole journey coming into where I am now as director, and I'll talk a bit about how I got that role, was there were things that you felt, and I'm sure some of you already get this feeling of sometimes, as unfortunate, I have to say this, as a Black female worker in tech, there was almost the feeling that you don't feel you're allowed to fail. You are held to higher account. You almost feel that I'm not allowed. If I do something wrong, I seem to be held against me far greater than everybody else. Now, that might be my own personal perception, but I know a lot of people feel that way. And so you worked twice as hard. You were focused on, what do I do? I need to make sure it's perfect. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist anyway, but it was making sure everything was perfect. That sort of helps in one way, but it's also quite exhausting another way in terms of what we do. My role in terms of thinking about that was then when I looked in Colt, the role came up for where I am now as the director, this was something very different. This was a different role. It was going back into operations. There's another part of the business I didn't know. I know of it and I could sell it, but I didn't know what it would entail until I joined that part of the business. And this is really where we deliver the services, we plug in the routers, we splice the cables that connects our major businesses. And for me, that was quite exciting. It was a really different way of learning how we deliver the business. So seeing the front end, how we sell it, what it looks like, what's the network look like, to how we deliver it, felt to me like a cohesive strand of knowing the front and the back end of our business, as well as the multiple functional areas that support and interlink within there. Now, notwithstanding that, obviously, there are other things that go around. You know, I talk about microaggressions. What does that mean? We get a lot of people will tell you, okay, make you feel that you're not good enough. They'll make you feel that, why, you know, when I got the country manager role, for example, someone came up to me and said, well, how did you get that job? Yeah, and I just said, well, I was nominated by, and it was agreed at the board level. So there you go. And other things, when I've had other promotions where it's, how did you get that? I applied. I went for an exhaustive interview process, and I got the job, and I can deliver and show that I could do the role. Now, these sort of things you're going to hear and see in your careers as you go along. Some people will say something. My view was not to listen to it, because that's their perception. I can't control how they think and feel about me. I can only control what I do. The other thing that obviously is part of my own personal journey was that I had to learn to adapt. I had to keep learning that whole continuous development. How do I grow? What does that evolution look like for me personally? And what is my trajectory? What's my journey going to be? And that was a really important part of who I am and what I needed to do. Obviously, there are dead ends, and you will get to those dead ends where, you know, I got to a point within my last company, there was nowhere else I could go. After you get to general manager, getting a director role there was nigh impossible, dead man's shoes, effectively. So I had to move a different direction and come out. But I did stay within the industry that I knew and where I had my expertise. One of the key things that sometimes gets called out quite a lot is where you're asked, you can't get a job because you don't have experience. And what I've learned over the time and the period is that you grow and you build your experience as you go along. So I was always asked, and this is something I've always do, I get the experience of the next level up doing whilst I'm doing my current job. It was almost, how much more do I need to do? What do they do that I can do to prove that I can deliver at that same level? I can work at that level. So that was a really thing from a personal journey, what I picked out. And then obviously it was important, as I said, there's lots of things in my first slide, I've had lots of hats. The key thing for me is, how do I get the time out? What's time out looking for me? The picture there is I love to walk, I do hikes, I will get out there, obviously socialising, family time is really important as well. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavour of my personal journey. But we talk about, how do I navigate the corporate ladder and what does that look like? And I've said it before, key things was about, to me and from my perspective and experiences, you need to be present. You need to be able to be there. You need to put your hand up. You need to ask for help if you require it in your day job or where you are in your function, whatever that means. You also have to have a view of, I am good enough. Yeah, not take on board what you think other people might be thinking about you, your lack of experience, your lack of qualifications, not to take that on board, but almost to feel, I can do this. This is what I can do and I can learn. And then from a development best perspective is understanding, okay, what are my gaps? What extra things do I need to do? So the general management program here that I did, I've done quite a few amazing programs. There was one called Successful Women, Powerful Women, Successful Women. It was a program that they did, amazing development program. You know, like everyone, we've done all the assessment tests that you can do, done loads of those, but they were really good programs that give you a good basis. And for me, one of the latest ones I did was one with Say Business School, Oxford Business School, which they did on leadership. And it was a great reminder of how you lead a team, and especially a hybrid disparate team around the globe. The other thing was also, for me, in terms of going up the corporate ladder and thinking, what do you need to do in your journey, on your own journey, is what are the new skills? What else do I need to learn? What is happening in my industry, with the vertical industries that I'm supporting, with the products that I'm delivering? Where are we going? And I'm constantly, because I do transformation, thinking about what next? What is the future? What is process improvements that we need to look at? How can I generate new ideas? So for example, even small ideas, you can take a process step and identify step 8, 1 to 10, and step 5 to 7, you could actually automate, or you can improve, which reduces the time to deliver a certain activity. So that's some of the things that I think about. I'm constantly thinking, what else? What next? What can I do? My poor team, one of their actual OKRs, key performance indicators for this year, was thinking, what new ideas as a team can we generate? What else, and how do we then put it into practice? The other thing I think is really clear for everyone in terms of going through the corporate sector is, what you've got to become intentional on your own career journey. You need to own it. You need to understand what you want to do, but not to be worried that it won't change. So I don't think, my key thing is, don't get fixated on what it is, because it will change. The road changes, the direction you go changes, the industry changes. So you need to be on par and see that and understand where you're going to go. And I think on my other area, and sort of take away from getting up the corporate and going into that senior role, was taking constructive feedback. You need to be able to not take it personally. It's really important when someone says to you, okay, Dolores, you need to focus more time on this, or we needed more time to deliver a deal, or we missed a whole chunk because someone misunderstood and you didn't check the assumptions or test that the risks were clear. Now, I'd say that that's examples where I'm working in bid management, and I'll talk a bit about timeline management. That's quite a key fundamental area of my team. But it's also, when we talk about understanding the team, it's not only understanding the team that you have as direct reports and you as a person within that team, it's also understanding the virtual team that you work with. How do they all play together? Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? What can I look at that? And what can we do? And then obviously, for me, mentorship is fundamental. I've had a mentor my whole career. In every area, I've identified somebody, I've been mentored, and I'm the sort of person I went up and asked. Literally, I went up to one of our engineering managers, could you be my mentor? Yes. I went to someone else, could you be my mentor? Yes. And then my final one, in sort of a Colt, my latest mentor, or final, because we're no longer, because change roles again, was one of our group council. And it was a case of, can you be my mentor? Yes. And it's for a period of time and a period of development, but that works very, very well for me. And I really would advocate for anybody to have a mentor. And I'm actually open now to reverse mentoring, other people to mentor me so that I can work and we both help each other as well. And then I just wanted to go on to this one. There are other things to talk about, but the key thing for me, and we talk about it all the time, is how do you show up? What does that look like? How can I be authentic? How can I be myself? And for me, it was about being vulnerable and being able to say to people, I don't know. I don't know. When I was a singleton bid manager in a new organization, as a leader within a new team that I've picked up over the last couple of years, I am able and have learned to say, I don't know. I am not the expert. I don't need to be the expert. That's why I've got a team like you guys, or I'm working a virtual team that bring in all those areas. But I am able to understand and acknowledge where the pathway fits, what's the steps, who needs to do what, and I can call out quite easily what is that picture supposed to look like. Then moving on, the key thing, and especially for most of us, is around my alignment of my own personal values, is about doing the right thing, being kind, being, good person. And it's very much that point of saying, I am who I am. I am my background, my heritage, but I don't actually, that's not how I see myself. I see myself as, obviously, like we all do, I'm Dolores Currie. This is who I am. I will be straightforward to the point. I'll tell you as it is, but I'll be kind. I'm not going to be critical. I will never make it personal, but you will get told where you are. I will give you feedback. Most of the time is asked for. Other times I will give it back because I think something needs to be called out. But that's where I am in terms of my alignment, and it actually aligns with what the company is working with and what we do now. So for me, it's about being true to myself, being true to who I am and how I behave. Notwithstanding this whole point around you can be a bit aggressive or being too straightforward. That's something we all deal with, but you learn ways of getting around that and navigating that. And one of the other things I was asked to think about is that the inclusion impact was, what is that about? How do I get people engaged? How do I get people their awareness raising as part of my role with United Network, which is our diversity and inclusion team? That's a quite key part of the role. It's understanding how do we raise visibility of knowledge of the team? What does anti-racism look like? What can we talk about? This year, we've got a classic example. We felt, okay, we've done all the usual roundtable discussions. We're celebrating our women, but we want to do something slightly different so that we can get people to talk about. It's about sharing the dialogue and understanding. And we have an artwork. So we have a pop-up art exhibition at Colt House, which is amazing, celebrating Black British artists, but also fueling dialogue with everybody in the company and getting them to understand what is it they need. So, and the other part of it for me is about amplifying those voices. What do we do for those underrepresented groups? How do I get them involved? What do they want? How do we share their feedback? We have issues. We understand there's going to be, we're a subset of the community that we live in all organizations, but it's also about people recognizing what do they need to do, but us to tell them, to give them the direction, to have those conversations, to understand where they're going. Before I'm not going to go on for much more for the moment. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other roles that I do. So as I said, I'm very busy. I've got lots going on. We do have my country manager role. I sit on the United Committee, which is our diversity committee. I sit on the Colt Corporate Compliance Committee, and I'm also lots of personal stuff. I'm a trustee, Citizen Advice Bureau, Citizen Advice, and I'm an ambassador for my local mental health charity that I used to share. So there's lots of areas that I dip in and out, and the management of my time, and we talked about time management, and I'm going to go to that next bit, is really key for me. So I'm going to jump 2 slides. So the key thing is, how do I do so many things? And for me, the real key point is setting priorities. I'm a bid manager. Bid management is about understanding what have you got to do and then working backwards. Like anybody who does project management, you will know that. But it's about being consistent. It's about making sure I deliver, and it's about understanding what you need to do, and also understanding that there's never enough time. So as much as I think I'm going to get it done by this, I know it's going to take me twice as long to do it. Yeah. The managing a team that is virtual matrix team that I don't have anything to do. They don't report to me, but I need them to do what I want them to do in the timeline I need them to do it by. Understanding what their capabilities are. I've had deals where I've worked with people in teams where I could see they're struggling, but they don't ask for help. And I can go back to say, what can I do for you? What do you need? What can we do here? So that's some of the things that we look at as well as a leader and as a manager, is something you need to understand. Because if we all win, especially in the bidding world or any other type of project, everybody gets the lead, so everybody celebrates the win. You're responsible for that. And the other thing for managing the time for me is prioritization is important. For me, absolutely. I have to put some time to what I'm doing for my major activities. I've got major programs on the run at the moment that I'm working with my team. I have to give time to that. Then I've also got to work out, when do I do pivotal moments for time for my charity work? And I do take time off, and I use my CSR days for that, as well as when do I need time to do some of the committee work, and I bake them all into my diary. So my diary gets awful because I've got things set out, but I also always put in time for myself. I put in time for my own reflection, and I put in time for my own training. What do I need to do that? So that's really important. And I think, as Matt said right at the beginning, the importance in Colt is about that trust and that leadership. If I will trust, automatically, I trust you. That's my first stance. I trust you to deliver until you show me you can't deliver. Yeah, and then if you fail my timescales, or you fail to keep me updated, then I'm probably a little bit more, what's going on here? Is there any capability issue, or is it just timescales? What else do they need? So that's really important. And then the other thing for me is around setting the time up that you look at the complexity of the activities you need to do, and then do it baby steps. What do I need to do that's really quick? I can get that out of the way. And then how much time do I need to do to this more complex activity or program that I'm developing? What does that need? What can we put in place for that? And then what's missing? Key thing is, don't get hung up on this. Yeah, it's a great, for me, it works. It's a great model of how I work, but I don't beat myself up. I don't think, oh, I missed that today. That's nightmare. I'm terrible. My to-do list for the next day, I never ever finish. It never happens. That's something you always look at. So it's being transparent for yourself, but it's also, how do I reprioritize what I need? But the key thing is, I deliver. That to me is fundamental. I deliver what I say I'm going to do by when I say it to people, so that they understand what that is. moving on, I'm just going to talk about quickly, very high level. I'm still learning. This was my little sort of mind map of things that are important to me, what I find that is important to where I am in my role and what I do. It is about still being kind to myself. I need to have a laugh. It's having a laugh with my colleagues, my friends. I'm able to be vulnerable, and I'm prepared to be vulnerable, because I think that's important, because then people see the real you. But I do understand, and I see the importance of being valued and being seen. So when I got the country management role, that was something that was said to me. At least we'll see people, diverse people at very senior roles across the business. And that was a good representation. It's a good role model. As well as I understand, and for myself, I do a great job, and I'm going to say that, it works well for me. But it is important that you recognize, and for me is recognize, I don't have to be the center of attention. It doesn't matter. I don't have to be the center to be noticed, but I know sometimes that's how people feel, because if they're not noticed, if you're working quietly in the background, sometimes you can get forgotten, and you're not seen around that. I'm not going to go into the personal lead time because I'm conscious of time for everybody, but some of the things that I wanted to bring out here was around the things for yourself. When we talk about diverse teams, and this is really important, I've got a global team. I have to understand who they are, where they are. I need to be able to manage their timescales. What time can I get them to be at their best? And I'm saying to people, do ask for the help. My team do, and I know other teams do. They will ask and reach out and say, I can't do this, or tell me they can't do it, or understand. But one of the key things to get real diversity of thought in your deals, in your projects, is making sure that you give the people the time to reflect. I don't automatically always expect an answer to something that we put on the table, or for people to come up with a response to a new project straight off the bat. I want them to have the information, I want them to read and think, and then come back and ask the questions. I think that way you gain valuable insight from the people in your team when you're managing, especially diverse team, especially where English is not their first language. You need to give them time, and you need to give them time to do what they need to do. Regarding my journey and where you think, I think for me, the key call out for me and for everybody is, I think, is excellence does matter. It's important that you are an expert in whatever that niche you're in, something you do extremely well, because that's what you build on. But find your passion. What is your passion? What do you need to do? And then what is the continuous development that you need to be working on to keep yourself up to date? And around the time management piece, the key one I want to just call out here is you need to be able to exceed your own expectation. What is it that you want to do, and deliver what you promise, and the importance of discipline around that. Yeah, so that's where I'm going to stop, because I am conscious of time for questions. Matt, I'm going to hand over to you if we've got any questions that we want to raise, or is there anything else people want to go forward on?
Thanks, Dolores. That was fantastic. We've got one question from James. Thank you, James.
Okay.
He's popped up. Oh, I think one more. Just referencing mentors. He asks, what are your expectations from a mentor? How do you manage them not prioritizing time for you, even though they said yes? So I don't know if that's personal experience.
That's a really good question, because it depends on the mentor. So that's my view is part of what we call that contract. So when you have a first mentor, part of the initial discussion is, what is the contract between you? How are you going to work, and who's going to do what? So with all the mentors I've had, is I've agreed particular check-in times with them when they can deliver and they can meet me enough in advance so they got me notice, and I put them all into their diaries. That's the way I've done it. I get them into their diary, and actually I've had mentors who've pushed me because I haven't delivered things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I haven't done it. I've got a mentor meeting tomorrow. I've got things to do. I think if it's not working and you're not getting their time, my suggestion would be to question, is that the right mentor for you at that moment? Because sometimes our mentors can change, and it might be that somebody, you say to them, I don't think this is quite working that well. Maybe we can come back again and revisit this, but I don't think you've got the time. We don't seem to have the time to do this properly.
So nothing wrong, yeah, with feeding that back to your mentor.
Correct.
Say, I don't feel that I'm getting quite the level of focus or attention
Yeah.
right now. There's nothing wrong with, because it should be a very much a two-way thing. You're expecting to be very vulnerable with them and then offering very personal guidance in terms of how to deal with certain challenges and certain issues.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you going back to them to say, I have a problem with the way that this is working.
Correct.
Good, thank you. Thelma has a question, she's popped up. What is the best approach for requesting feedback with actionable steps, particularly if feedback is either difficult to get or it's very generic?
That's a really good question. The way I would suggest you do that is you've got to take ownership. So it's almost building when you have if you're doing it with your manager, for example, it's really clear the way I do it with other people, I've done it before, is to understand, okay, I've got a number of things, I've done ABC. Let's be clear, I always ask for feedback. Every single one-to-one I have, I ask my manager, what can I do better? What do you think I need to do more of? Or what should I stop doing? I always ask that question. Sometimes we don't have time to do it every month or I have bi-weekly meetings with my manager because we're all virtual, so that works. But the key thing is to understand what is it you're doing, because you've got to know what you're asking for feedback on. So if it's on a particular project, I would suggest thinking about, okay, what are the steps that I need to get done? Have I done that well? What does that look like? And then ask them, can you give me feedback on these 2-3 particular things that you're slightly worried about, you don't think went that well? Because if you've done your own self-assessment and self-reflection on what you delivered, then it's easier to have that conversation. Yeah.
Find that you're receiving generic feedback, is it because you're asking a too generic question?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Other than asking for something
very particular, very much to, I would turn around and say, I'm doing this project. These are the key activities for this particular delivery that I've got to do by X. I've done one recently. Where it's not worked, I've gone back and said, what can I do here? This is what I'm suggesting I'm going to do, because I will come up with a suggestion always. I will have an alternative way of doing something, but I would also be probably the first one to be self-critical. I'm a little bit like that. I would turn around and say, I don't think I did this very well. This is my suggestion on how I would do it differently. What do you think? And then for them to then pull in, because that's when you get people to say, okay, you could have done A, B, C differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps. Question from Barbara. What systems do you use to prioritize you and your team's workload? Also, how do you track remote employees' productivity and output?
Oh, that's a great one. So systems, basically we're a teams house. So everything is on collaboration on teams, groups and meetings. So I've got teams and support points. To tell the truth, I do not track people's time. I don't do it. I don't think it's important. I track delivery. So if I've got people to do things, sorry.
The question was about tracking their productivity.
But productivity comes down to what they've delivered. It really does. I've got a list of projects for my whole team that they've all got to be done by a certain time. I do a check-in with the whole team and I do a Monday morning check-in with everybody in my team weekly. Everyone jumps in, I can see where they are. I get updates, team updates on where they are and issues within their projects, and I know what the timeline is to deliver, and I check against that. Yep.
Good, thank you. There are 3 remaining questions so far, so I will limit you, Dolores, to a 90-second answer for each one.
Okay.
Jim Deere asks, I love that idea generation is a KPI for your team members. What advice would you give someone stepping into line management for the first time? You've got 90 seconds.
First, stepping in first time, get to know your team. Really is, get to know your team, trust what they do and trust that they know what they're doing. So ask the questions and find out, are you all aligned and where you're going? What's your strategy for your team? I think it's key at the beginning.
How important is it to understand and get to know your direct reports on a more personal level, i.e. outside of that work environment?
In a virtual environment, as it is now, when I've got people in China, India, Japan, Germany, all the European countries, it's not easy. We do have a laugh, and I will have one-to-ones, and I try to pull out things that I get to know about them individually. But it's on a personal basis. If you want to share, then they will share. I'm happy to share. So I'm a sharer. I will tell you things. And generally, when I tell things, people that come back to me, if there's something going on in their family or an illness, they're quite easy to share with me. Like someone said to me recently, I tell you, Dolores, because you will understand. Yeah. So, that's what you do. Yeah.
Rejoice asks, how do you maximize your mentor relationships? I.e., how can you get the best out of them?
My mentor relationships. That's an interesting thing, because I think the question is incorrect. I'm mentoring. It's not what I get out of them, it's what they get out of me. So they're coming to me for advice. I'm not coaching, I'm mentoring. So I'm telling them directions of how to solve a problem or where to go or how to navigate the business. It's really up to them to want to do the activity. If I make a suggestion or we agree a pathway of what we're going to do, if they don't deliver that, that's not my responsibility. You're the mentee, you need to own that journey. You need to own, taking responsibility of what you want to do. I don't try to force it. Yeah. As a mentor, I don't think it's your job to do that. It's working with somebody, but you've got to show up to do the work.
Good. Final question. There is the final question from AJ. You talked about prioritization and time management. How do you prioritize time for strategic, operational, and day-to-day work? Do you have such a time allocation methodology?
Answer is no. To tell the truth, being honest, I've got strategic and, to me, it all becomes the same. They're all a deliverable that I've got to do. If it's a strategic long-term activity, and I know the timeline. So we've got projects that's going to go into next year. I know what I need to do. I can plan in how much time, and it's great because I've got reflection time to do that. Day-to-day activities, I'm lucky I've got a team. The team do the day. I know what we've got to do. There are key things that are my responsibility that I make sure I deliver to, or I get the rest of my directors, my colleagues, that we know what we're all doing. So I manage some of their activities and their time to deliver those projects. So in essence, strategically, it's on the board, it's my long-term range plans, and short-term range, what have I got to do by now, next week, next month, etc. Yeah.
That is it for the questions, and I think we've got just over a minute to go. Shazia, Aman, do you want to close with anything, or is it down to me to close?
It's down to you to close, but thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to our speakers. There'll be a short survey coming out after this call, and also please join our new platform Javelin. It will help with more opportunities and also hit your personal goals as well. There's a link on this chat. Thank you again, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
But thanks ever so much for your time. And by the way, our website, colt.net, very simple. Search for careers, search for our opportunities. There's lots of information on there about what it's like to work at Colt and culture. So thank you ever so much. And thanks, Dolores.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, everybody. BWYP.
Yes.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.